The Square Ball Podcast.
Welcome to another edition of The West Stand. Guests from across the world of Leeds United with me, Dan Moylan. With me is Michael Normanson. You all right?
I'm well, thank you.
Are you looking forward to engaging the services of SMYTH.com?
I am. I've got it all down. I'm ready to go on it. I'm poised.
Yeah.
And do you know what I'm going to be doing? Not paying for data while I'm on holiday.
Yeah, data wherever you're going, over 200 destinations. SMYTH.com/the square ball for a 15% discount on your plan. There'll be a link in the episode description as well, because you don't want to be using YouTube on the tethering.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good.
You're
absolutely right. Yeah. It genuinely is very expensive on if I'm on my standard phone contract. So this lives alongside it, and I use that for my data instead.
Do you want to know something exciting? As part of my NordVPN plan, I got given some more gigabytes of data free. Do you want them?
Yeah. Yeah, might as well.
Because you're taking the freebie that we've got.
Good. Yeah, I'll have anything free, really.
Yeah.
Got anything else?
Just a bit more data.
Okay.
Really.
If it's all you're offering, I'll have it.
Yeah, because SMYTH.com is brought to you by the people who bring you NordVPN. So good folks. Works on iOS and Android, I believe.
Does. I'm an Android.
Yeah, and it's the newer phones. If you've got a slightly older phone, you found you've installed the app and then you've bought some data and it doesn't work, they'll just refund you because they're nice people like that, which is good. SMYTH.com/the square ball, link in the episode description, as I mentioned. Today's guest is Graham Smith from the Yorkshire Evening Post, from the German base, dialing in from Germany. How are things over there, Graham?
Yeah, good. Das ist good. That's about all is good. Is that how they say it? That's about the extent of my German. Yeah, it's fine. It's very German. It's very secretive. Even though everyone knows exactly where we are, we're not allowed to say where we are.
Where are you?
Germany.
Damn, he's so clever.
Shows around the room. Go on, if you're on the video. I mean, not much we can identify there from the background.
Yeah.
There'll be some people on the internet who'll find out, who'll look up like wallpapers and stuff and be able to work it out.
It would be the shadows. They'd work out the direction of the shadows and the time that it is, and they'd work out exactly where I was.
What do you actually do then when you're out there? Obviously, there was a game Tuesday, as we recorded this yesterday. So were you allowed to go to that, or was that a secret?
No, we were allowed to go to that. So Monday we went to training at the team hotel, did a bit of filming, spoke to a couple of players, watched some training, and then yesterday we went to SC Verl's sport arena, quite National League, League Two, the kind of standard of the ground. Watched that game with an attendance of about 53, I think I counted. 58 people I counted. Most of those seem to be family of the staff or special guests of the host club.
Did you drink heavily to make up for the absence of Leeds fans?
Yeah, drank loads,
Good.
Swore loads, sang some songs that will get me banned, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
oh, good.
Fairly typical weekend for Graham, that, as I understand it. Yeah. What did you make of the game then? 4-1 victory. Were the German hosts slightly better than we expected?
Yeah, they were more entertaining than Manchester United, I thought. For a third-tier side, I thought they played really lovely football. They passed out from the back. They took risks, even in their own area. You know, the goalkeeper was passing it across his own box. And they pressed high, and they didn't make any changes till 91 minutes. So their players must have been absolutely out on their feet, because from 60 minutes onwards, they faced a almost completely fresh Leeds team. I was quite impressed, to be honest. I mean, quality was probably always going to show, and Leeds probably should have scored a couple more than the 4 they did. But, Leeds keepers were forced into action as well. And, quite an entertaining game, I thought.
For the benefit of anybody who's not aware, they played 2 60-minute halves, didn't they? So it was like a full 90-plus extra time to give 2 Leeds sides some minutes, 60 minutes. So where are we then, Graham, with things? What's the vibe in Germany? Because you're obviously closer to the action there.
In terms of where they are in pre-season, or in terms of the exciting stuff?
All of it, really. I suppose the transfers is the thing that everybody wants to know about. We can touch, I suppose, on the pre-season aspects of it, because it's fairly dull gym work, isn't it? And running and tactics and shape. That doesn't get the pulse racing, does it?
No, it's all minutes. It gets the players' pulses racing. Not Ilya Gruev, though, who looks like he could play 120 minutes every day for the rest of his life and not suffer. I think Farke is quite pleased with where they are. He's certainly pleased to get the building blocks in place for the team. Had they gone and got the exciting bits of transfer work first, I think everyone would probably be asking, where are your foundations? Where are the big lads? Where are the defenders? Who's going to stop us from getting hammered every week? They've gone about it in quite a sensible way, I think, bringing in the sizable giants that they've brought in. It all seems to be adhering to a very clear plan. Nobody can say if the plan's going to work, but at least there is one. So they're all quite pleased, I think, with the work they've done so far, and getting 6 in. The logistics involved and the manpower involved in getting 6 transfers done this quickly is considerable. You can't work on a million deals all at once. So I think Farke is very pleased with what he's got so far, but also he still wants a lot more.
What have you seen of Anton Stack, who's the newest of the new boys so far?
I've seen him walk from a coach to a dressing room. I've seen him walk up the side of a pitch with a ball at his feet. And then I've seen him sit in a stand. That's about the height of it so far. He didn't get his FIFA clearance in time, so he couldn't play, sadly. But I think we'll see him on Saturday against Redacted FC.
Are you even allowed to say Saturday? Like, or have you broken some rules there?
He's a giant human being. Looks enormous. I think Meslier was stood next to Cairns in the dining hall at their hotel, and they were just like casting a glance at him, and Meslier was in awe of the fact that he was a player the same size as him. But I think he's a bit more of a wardrobe than Meslier. I think if the two of them clashed at full speed, my money would be on the German rather than the Frenchman.
Transfer wise, then what's the noise there? Is there anything coming out of the camp? I presume like the recruitment staff are there as well, because they brought Stack in Germany. So Adam Underwood and the team knocking about.
I wouldn't say Adam Underwood and the team. I'd say Adam Underwood is here, and then they flew the club secretary out to complete that deal. But Underwood is staying with the team, which he did last summer, and Steinson was here for part of it last summer as well. So that's not particularly new, but it does mean that he's in constant communication with Daniel Farke. That seems to be the way that it's working. That Underwood is his Farke's link to the recruitment side of things, and it's all going down one channel. So there's no chance of miscommunication between the departments, and they're continuing to work on stuff, while they're here. It does feel to me like we've now got to the being slightly more patient part of the window, because the deals that they want to do, there are deals that they think are possible but are not quite there yet. So Muniz at Fulham, we know that Fulham are in the market for a striker. When they get one, that's when Leeds think their stance on Muniz will soften. And I think they've been given plenty of encouragement on the player side that there'll be a deal to be done there. Igor Pajon, equally, Marseille, despite all that noise at the weekend, haven't got a deal over the line. It doesn't even look like they've got that close to getting a deal over the line yet. And all the kind of the dithering and the days that go on and the final negotiations that we keep hearing about, that's got to give Leeds a lot of encouragement. I know they were told over the weekend that a deal wasn't done with Feyenoord, so ignore that noise, essentially, was the message. I think where it lies is that what we hear from Holland is that when Feyenoord signed him from Brazil, they made a big effort with the player's family, and that seemed to get their deal over the line. I think Marseille have gone for a similar approach, and I think the family have been quite taken with the Marseille project and the effort that they've made. So I certainly think the player would be open to a move to Marseille, but the sticking point appears to be between the clubs. They can't see eye to eye on what it is Feyenoord are asking for. I'm also hearing suggestions that Feyenoord aren't entirely sold on the idea of selling him, that he's their best player and they'd really quite like to keep him, but maybe realism will kick in a big way, particularly if the player wants to move. Also hearing that he's open to the idea of the Premier League, as all these players are going to be. So on the player side of things, I don't think Leeds would anticipate a problem if they themselves got to the point with Feyenoord where they could say, let's now strike a deal. But I think as long as there's no deal with Marseille, there's no reason for Leeds to think this is over.
Right. That's interesting, isn't it? Because people will be saying, well, why don't they just go in there and blow Marseille out the water and give them what they want? Because is it correct that Feyenoord have recently just sold a defender to, is it Saudi, I think, maybe? And therefore that might open the door to them sitting tight on the fee and say, well, you've got to cough up if you want to get this player because we don't need the money urgently now.
Yeah, and also you look at what he did last season. You know that this is not a player that they need to sell on the cheap. If they do manage to keep hold of him, he probably gets another 30 goal contributions next season and puts them in a great shape. But you know, I spoke to someone in Holland this morning, and they said the player wants to go. That's the real sticking point for Feyenoord. So I think it's about getting the best deal possible, and they are in quite a good position when it comes to that. So it is going to cost. For Leeds, I think as long as it doesn't stretch to silly money and then it starts to jeopardise getting your 9 in, getting your goalkeeper in, getting the other bits that need to bulk out the squad, I think they're still in the race. But it can't get to silly money.
What about outgoings then? Because we've seen the Mateo Joseph thing unfold in the last 24, 48 hours in the wake of the first friendly in Germany. It looks like he's set for some sort of exit. Is there the potential that they might actually maybe loan him for this year and then sell him towards the end of the financial year? Or is that too risky, do you think? What if he goes off and has a bad season, for example, doesn't score goals and actually devalues himself to some extent? Would they have the appetite for that? Because the focus, I suppose, is on PSR, isn't it, rather than money? But the PSR window runs to the 30th of June, so they've got time on their side if they're willing to embrace that.
Graham was trying to get him to Rangers. I saw on Twitter. So I mean, you know,
makes sense. It makes sense, Michael.
For who?
For me, mostly. I think a loan is very, very likely. Now, somebody might come in and put down an amount of money on the table, and Leeds think, you know what, bloody hell, that sorts us out a little bit for PSR, helps us get other business over the line, and gets this situation out of our hair. But that hasn't happened yet. And because that hasn't happened yet, I'm starting to think that a loan makes a lot more sense, because say he goes to Betis or he goes somewhere else in Spain or a top league in Europe and he scores 5 to 10 goals, his value is way above what it is right now. And then you sell him before 30th of June and the situation has been absolutely perfect. Now, I say he doesn't, right? And it's a year of toil or a frustrating year or injuries or whatever. You still got the player on your books. You know, you bring him back, you've not lost an asset, and there are other players that could be sold between now and the 30th of June, depending on where Leeds find themselves in the Premier League season and depending what else happens the rest of this window. So I don't think Leeds are over a barrel here at all. And, you know, the whole player power aspect of it didn't work out too brightly for Willy Gnonto when he was advised down a similar route. You know, he didn't get sold. Leeds didn't bend to that. And I think there might be a similar stubbornness with Leeds, unless, of course, somebody says, here's X amount of millions, we'll take him.
Is there a sum, do you think, that Leeds would blink at? Because everyone extrapolates this out into, I don't know, if we get 10 million, then it opens the door to maybe 40 million pounds worth of PSR expenditure over the course of the next 4 years. Of course, you've got to account for the 10 million each year, but in terms of what it does for this year.
Yeah, well, every player has a price, don't they? Every single player has a price. So there will be a number that Leeds would say, right, okay, fair enough, let's do it, because it makes a lot of sense from PSR. But I do think they'll want to protect themselves, because this is a player that they definitely think has a huge amount of potential. You know, I don't think Daniel Farke was lying when he said we rate him really highly, and if we didn't rate him, we wouldn't have played him as much last season. Now, of course, he played him a lot in the start of the season, and his chances diminished as the season went on. But he was still involved in the first team, in a team that was top of the table or thereabouts and going for a title. Still very, very young. He's done really, really well for Spain under 21s. This is not a player that you'd want to sell on the cheap. It's a player that you'd want to sell for a decent amount of money plus a decent sell on, because there's still every possibility that Mateo Joseph catches fire and becomes a really great striker.
Have we got any sense of whether or not he's had his head turned here by a potential offer, or whether it's simply wanting out of Leeds because he feels he's not high enough in the pecking order and where he feels he should be?
I think he was open to the move in January when Betis came in, and Leeds obviously weren't minded to sell at that point. They had no reason to. If he's told his manager that he wants to move to Spain, that seems incredibly specific to me. And maybe the advice he's getting is that a bit of push on the player side is what it'll take to get this done. I don't know that that's the best advice. You know, Parag Marathi, it doesn't seem like the kind of guy to me that will be forced into something. I think he'd probably rather dig his heels in. I think in Daniel Farke, he's got a partner in that venture, because we know that Farke has a streak in him that if you tell him what to do, that's the last thing that he'll actually do.
In terms of the keeper then, Graham, it looks like we are getting a new spine to the side, quite a tall one at that, when you factor in Bijol and the central midfielders that have come in, particularly Stack. Would it not make sense to get a keeper in pretty damn soonish? Because you said it might be time for patience now, where they sort of sit and wait a little bit. Is there a bit of a pressing need for a keeper to cement that spine of the team?
Well, I think everyone would be a lot more comfortable if they got the keeper in. And I think Farke would probably have him sooner rather than later. But I'm also told that Farke's feeling was that the outfield arrivals were a lot more important in their timing than the keeper, and that if a keeper arrived the week before the season, that's fine, as long as they get him. Because ultimately, the keeper, he doesn't need to know the system quite as well as the outfield players, does he? His job is going to be stopping a hell of a lot of very good shots, really well-struck shots. So, yeah, I think the priorities will be getting the outfield players in. That's not to say that they're not going to try and move on a keeper, but I think if their time was being divvied up and they had the chance to get Muniz and Pajone over the line or a keeper, I know which two deals they'd work on concurrently.
People will hear that though and will say, well, they could do all of it. They should be doing all of them.
Yeah, people will say that, yeah.
We've all played Football Manager. You can make loads of offers at once. That's simple.
Any sense of who they might go for? Because there's been the most noise around Perry at Lyon recently, but prior to that, there was a lot of noise about Zentner and Nubel in Germany. So I know there's been a little bit of to-ing and fro-ing on who they might go for a keeper. Word is now that they've settled on someone. Do we know who that might be?
Not yet.
No.
If there's a name, it hasn't come to me yet. Or rather, if there's a name outside of the ones you've mentioned, it hasn't come to me yet. I mean, Perry looks good. We know that Zentner was liked, but yeah, it's been very, very quiet on that front. Whereas in other positions, I think, when did we report Stack? They wanted Stack. That was the 1st of July. It feels like it's taken a lot longer for them to get a consensus on a keeper, but it does sound like they are confident now of moving forward.
Who would you go for?
I mean, I want
the big lad.
I wanted Milinkovic-Savic just because he looks terrifying.
Yeah,
but that's not happening, is it?
I just wonder as well, factoring in all of the Brazilian lads. So you got Paixão, you've got Perry's Brazilian, Muniz Brazilian. Is this a deliberate strategy? Do you think potentially of looking at Brazilian lads and thinking we could get a little enclave of them in Leeds? We've got friends to hang out with.
Get Rafinha on the phone. You can tell them how great it was.
They could go down to Fazenda and eat steak.
Oh, can any of you take long throws? They can have a lovely chat about stuff.
Yeah, but the Rafinha dream presumably forms part of what they are selling to these players.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I think it's quite a nice selling point that they can say, look at your idol, look at your star boy playing at Barcelona. Look at the part that Leeds United played in his development and how it got him. It was his platform. I know everyone hates talking about the club as a stepping stone or a platform, but Leeds United was his platform to his dream move, his childhood dream move to Barcelona. And Leeds probably could have done slightly better financially out of that deal, but they did all right. And Rafinha's done magnificently from it. So yes, they have been using that and pointing squarely at Rafinha when talking to their Brazilian targets. I don't think necessarily they've set out to go and get a small coterie of Brazilians. I just think that these are good players who happen to be Brazilian.
And yeah, we don't want to think of ourselves as a springboard, but I think I'm more comfortable with that as a reality now. Because I remember being younger, thinking, "Piss off, you're not using us as a springboard. We're the biggest club in the world." But just with the way that the Premier League is stratified now, there's no denying that you're in the bottom third, aren't you? And will be until you're out of it, effectively. And that's not going to happen this summer. But maybe if you do stay up, and then you can kick on into the second season. And I know that 49ers are very much wedded to the idea of the second season being more comfortable financially, or at least from a PSR point of view, than perhaps this summer, when they are trying to pay off still the cash residues of the Andrea Radrizzani era. So I suppose you hope that you hang on to these players for long enough, if you get them, that is, that the path of the club matches their ambition.
Yeah, I think from everything I've heard this summer, there's a massive sense of realism, gritty northern realism about Leeds United this summer, where People are talking about how tough it's going to be. Lucas Nemecha went to the Formula One and said that somebody said to him, let's go and get a European place. And like he was making light of it, but saying, we as a squad have to be realistic in our expectations about how difficult it's going to be and what kind of season it's going to be. Now, he is one of the most confident and self-confident people I've ever spoken to, but even he's realizing that this is not going to be easy. You look at the last couple of seasons, it's blindingly obvious that it's going to be tough. And everyone around Leeds seems to be reflecting that in the way they're talking. They want to stick in, they want to be hard to beat, hard to play against, maybe even use set pieces more than they did previously. But you can still say to players, come and show that you can do it in the Premier League and then see what happens. And then you just player trade, don't you? Some people come and they're with you for a short time and they do a job for you and it's brilliant for them and brilliant for you. And then they move on. And Rafinha, it certainly didn't harm his reputation with Leeds fans, did it? Because he gave them incredible memories over 2 seasons. I think that's almost enough these days to make you a bit of a hero if you keep a club up or if you get them into Europe or if you win something with them.
It's a bit sad though, isn't it? That you can't really fall in love with footballers anymore. I don't know, it's just speaking to a bygone era where, look at the Rivi era where players were there from, being kids to retirement in some cases. But it's just not the way of the world anymore, is it?
There's something more palatable about losing a player to Barcelona, though, isn't there? Where players going to Bournemouth, there is a bit of you still goes, oh, come on. Not there. Daft little League One team.
I mean, ultimately, you can bring them back as well when they're quite old and they can be like player coaches.
Yeah, that is fun, isn't it? Johnny Howson, as revealed by his brother on Facebook, I think. Yeah. Again, talking about a very modern way of transfers leaking out via social media. That's nice, though, isn't there? There's a romance to that. It's, it sort of ticks all the same boxes as like, Sam Byram and Alex Cairns, doesn't it?
Well, Alex Cairns, just looks like the happiest man in football. And people do say, don't they, third choice goalkeeper is the best job in the world. But the look on his face yesterday when he was walking down the touchline, all kitted up, ready to go out, he looked proud as punch. And everyone around from the Leeds camp was absolutely delighted to see him get on the pitch for the first time in an official friendly or any kind of game since he came back to the club. He absolutely loves being here. And if you can, I quite like the whole Howson idea because we've seen it at other clubs with their 21s. A bit of leadership, a bit of quality, a bit of nous in the 21s, which has kind of stagnated a little bit as a project or as a team in the last couple of years. It can't really do that because you've got your prize jewel at number 9 and he needs people to play with. And he needs, if he's playing with the 21s, he needs service and he needs to be in a team that's competitive. So I really quite like the Howson thing.
I tell you what I do like, the gritty Yorkshire realism that's underpinning this season. It's quite appealing to me. I don't know if that's my Yorkshire characteristics or what, but the idea that we can go in and grind for a bit rather than trying to outplay people. I said before, I want us to be a bit horrible this season to play against.
There's many ways you can enjoy football. I think that's the thing. We've still got Bielsa in the very recent past, haven't we? So there's a bit of you goes, it'd be great, some swashbuckling football, all this attacking play and stuff. But equally, if we just can beat Man United by scoring a header from a set piece, that'll go down just as well, won't it? Essentially, there's a lovely romanticism to playing nice football, but staying up is really the be all and end all.
Yeah, and what you're saying is you want to see Jakob Biol head that goal in, and then emerge at full time with Bruno Fernandes head on a plate,
something like that. Yeah, absolutely. It wouldn't harm to see him getting smashed about a bit, would it?
I'm so excited to remind you, Dan, in, November, that you said you were looking forward to grinding out results this season. I can't wait.
I do feel grinding out results in the Premier League in this season will be fine. Grinding them out in the start of the Championship last year didn't feel great.
No, I lived through the George Graham era, as did you, which was, bloody hell, Graham. You're lucky to have avoided that one. That was a tough watch, wasn't it? But you saw what he was trying to do and you kind of enjoyed it because it was stability after a period of sort of relative instability and we weren't quite sure where we were going. And I suppose there are parallels with this, the idea that we're looking to do a job for the here and now and you can sprinkle a little bit of stardust onto this, hopefully if we get like Muniz, but Pak Xiao in particular would be one of those players. And we've got quite a lot in the squad already as well, let's not forget. But we would perhaps, if we get 12 months down the line, and it was to be identical again, then you'd think, okay, that shows maybe a lack of progress. They're just looking to grind again. We're going to have to grind for a few years, of course we are, until you add all those kind of magical Stardust players in. But
If Bornau is this generation's Robert Molyneux,
Yeah.
that's fine.
If he's not injured. He's already injured, isn't he, Graham?
Yes, he on day one he lasted probably half of the first session, and then we noticed him walking off with one of the physios and having a discussion, and then heading back inside. Quad injury, but it's only a minor one, so it'll only be a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
How's Jack Harrison looked in training? Is he part of the group? Are they shunning him? Are they bullying him?
I think we need to wait for the results of the paintball session to know exactly how the squad feels about Jack Harrison. If he comes back absolutely covered in welts and bruises, then I think we'll know. No, he's looked like he's part of it. Like, he looks like he's working hard. To be honest, watching him in training and watching him in games, it doesn't really look any different to how it looked before. He's still getting up and down. And what struck me during the game against SC Verl was that Farke is giving a lot of input to Harrison. Now he has to, because Dan James knows the system a lot more, knows the way he wants to play. Nyonto similarly. Harrison was getting a lot of input from Farke, and I wonder, would he be investing so much time and energy into a player if he thought this player wasn't going to be here to be used? I mean, obviously things can change and he can move on. But yeah, it just made me wonder, is Farke preparing for a season with Harrison among his options? Which will be an interesting one, I think, for the fan base to deal with.
People are going to seize on that, Graham. They're going to jump on it and say, you're basically hinting that Farke wants to keep him. I don't necessarily believe that to be the case. I think he's probably just being professional and doing what he has to do to coach the players that are there. And if he makes the cut, then he makes the cut. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But I still feel like if a suitable offer was to come in to take Harrison elsewhere, even if it's just a case of getting his wages off the books for 12 months, they'd probably take it, surely.
For just wages? I don't know. They might decide to just keep him for that.
You say he's being professional and, doing what he has to do. Could he not have brought Patrick Bamford out here to help with the preparations and be part of the squad and to be professional? He told him he wasn't part of his plans.
Yeah, but I wonder if that is in part down to contract duration and the fact that Bamford's got a year left and maybe there wasn't any real prospect of using him, and maybe there is more of a prospect of using Jack Harrison because of the financial cost to the club. If they can't get rid of him, he's going to be too high, isn't it? Whereas Bamford is relatively lower, although he's on a fairly hefty wage, as I understand it. Maybe they know that Bamford will want to play at this stage in his career and will therefore take the opportunity to move somewhere else, whereas you might not be able to do that with Harrison because of his wages.
On a practical level as well, we are a left winger down from last season because Solomon has gone back. So there is an actual space there, whereas with Bamford, we have brought a striker in, so he's further down the list, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe you're right. We'll just have to wait and see. My concern or my feeling about it would be who's gonna stump up the necessary money, if not in transfer fee, then in wages, for Jack Harrison after 1 goal and 1 assist at Everton last season.
Right.
Were you surprised by the Bamford news?
Yes, in terms of almost the brutality of it, and it was just so definitive. Like a chapter coming to an end really abruptly. But I felt that Bamford would go last summer. I felt like it was time last summer. I felt like he'd reached the end of the road with the fan base. And fair enough, he proved me wrong because he played a part towards the end of last season and seemed to be back in the affections of a lot of people by the time it came to the summer when he was doing his, playing his guitar in front of thousands of people. But I didn't expect him to stick around for next season. I just couldn't see where the move was going to be. And I wasn't sure if Leeds would force it. But it looks like they've been very, very clear that they want things to come to an end now.
And is that really how we've got to frame this? It's a case of Leeds saying, no, you can either sit here for a year on your big wages and not play.
Oh, no.
Or they're saying, well, actually, if now giving you the wrong side of 30, surely you want to go play. This is how it is. There is a certain amount. It feels like there's a certain amount of, and it's applicable where Bamford's concerned, strong arming him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If you're faced with the prospect of playing in the 21s and your only goals being Premier League 2 goals, then at 31, well, that's not really an ideal situation. I know for a fact that Bamford backs himself and still thinks that he's got something to prove, something that he can bring. So I would imagine he'll be very keen to go somewhere and score goals and be able to say, "I told you so." But it's just the where and the who and at what level, which is another fascinating one. Him and the Harrison one, I almost can't wait to see how it plays out.
That'll be the big tell, won't it? It's where he ends up and where the interest comes from, where Bamford's concerned, and whether people have enough faith in his ability and think he's worth the investment at this stage to take him on. Where do you see him ending up? Championship somewhere, maybe? Or
problem is the Championship can't afford him, and whether or not his body can hold up to playing that many games, you would also have to have serious doubts about given the last few years. So it's always felt a bit MLS-y to me, but whether or not there's the interest there, I've no idea.
I can't see MLS because of his age, his recent struggles with injury, and the wages. Because if you're bringing in a Bamford, he's going to be one of your, what's the term for them? The exemptions, basically what Click has been until yesterday. I think they're looking for players that they know they'll be able to absolutely rely on for every game, because you're going outside of your salary cap for those players, aren't you? You're making a special exception for them. I don't think he fits the profile. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think he fits the profile for that. I've always thought over the last couple of years, I don't know why, always thought he's like a bit of a Stoke signing. Like maybe Leeds would have to swallow some of the wages on a move like that. But he could go to Stoke and score a few goals, and the expectation, the pressure, I certainly think would be less intense than it is at Leeds. And maybe that would suit him.
Does it? I don't know if I see Bamford himself going for that, but if that's the offer, then yeah.
I mean, the salary is the big stumbling block, because there are plenty of teams that would have him for a freshly negotiated, low sort of mid-championship contract. I'm sure there'd be a queue of people who'd have him, but the fact he's going to be now on 70-odd grand a week, it becomes quite hard to shift at that price.
If not higher. Actually, you never know. Where these wages have bubbled to with the previous Premier League contracts. You hear some fairly dramatic stories, don't you, about the salaries? And I suppose that's one of the stumbling blocks when it comes to the other peripheral players. Gelhardt, Greenwood, JB, all going to be on sizable contracts relative to where the demand for them is going to come from, i.e. Championship.
Yeah, it is one of the big issues for Leeds. Although they're not talking in, there hasn't been any signs of desperation or panic or stress or concern about it. But you don't want to be paying out huge amounts of money to players who are not contributing, or players who are on the bench or not even on the bench, fringe players. So it's good financial management to get these players off the books. If that's a loan that picks up a big whack of the wages, great. But I think they'd be looking to permanently shift on a couple of these players. And also from a Joe Gelhardt point of view, he went away and enjoyed some football for the first time in a long time last season. Actually looked like he was enjoying his life on the pitch. He's got to want to go somewhere this summer and bring the whole Leeds thing to an end and get a fresh start.
Here's a real test. How many of them would you have at Rangers?
Gelhardt, yes. JB, yes. Who else would you throw our way?
Bamford and Harrison.
Greenwood.
Not there isn't a chance in hell that Rangers could stomach the wages of Bamford or
just hypothetically, though.
In a hypothetical world, as loans or free transfers, then yeah. I mean, imagine how many goals Patrick Bamford would score in Scotland, and Jack Harrison would be like knee deep in assists. So he'd get a few goals himself. That's the thing about these players. I know that a lot of Leeds fans have written them off, but Jack Harrison's level is not the Championship. He might not have done it for Everton over the last 2 seasons, but what he did at Leeds under Bielsa shows that his level is not the Championship. Similarly, Patrick Bamford, he's almost like an in-between, isn't he? Championship and Premier League. He scored 17 goals in the Premier League season. You don't do that if you're no good. But I just don't know where they're going to end up, either of them.
It'll be interesting to see, won't it? Right, what's in store for the rest of the week then? Any football matches to tell us about, or?
Yeah, one more football match against, like I said, Redacted FC.
Yeah.
Funny, Farke came and did his post-game interviews with the club and then with us pitch side yesterday, and on both occasions named the opponent and then had to apologise to us afterwards because we'd have to cut that out of the the audio and the transcripts before the police came and took him away. But yes, there's a game on Saturday. I think it's 90 minutes, this one, rather than 260s. And I'm really, really hopeful that we get to see Anton Giant Haystack.
Yeah.
Are you able to reveal if the opponent is of a higher caliber than the last game?
I think they are. Yeah, I think they are higher than third tier.
There's a guessing game.
No, they definitely are. They definitely are. You know what was interesting? It was the Leeds went to, I wouldn't say a big effort, but Leeds were very, very cordial and very, very appreciative of SC Verl and their kind of them giving them the game and taking the game on, because there was at least one other club who did not want to play a Red Bull sponsored football club. Well, the club wanted to, but their fans said no. So this whole kind of not having fans in wasn't the only difficulty Leeds have encountered with opposition and getting teams in. And I think there was one other game that was proposed that for some reason wasn't able to happen either. Might have been Bochum, because they decided to go and play somewhere else. So it hasn't been the easiest of schedules for them to put together. But you've got to think that this might be the last time that we will be out here in a secret location in Germany.
SC Verl a set of scab bastards, and that's what I'm hearing.
Well, what I will say is it's better than FC Gardenia.
That is true.
And playing yourself and 16-0 and mincing about in streams.
Yeah. That was not a great preparation. But
it hasn't been perfect.
What a season
it's been
followed.
Yeah, it hasn't been perfect, but it's been worse in previous years. All right, Graham, we'll let you get back to it. Enjoy your holiday.
Thanks very much.
We'll catch up with you soon.
Cheers.
The Square Ball Podcast.